George, are you trying to hurt your brother?
No. Dang it. I'm trying to kill him.
Now, be nice to your brother. You might need him to help you rig an election someday.
No, Mom. I need to murder Jeff.
You want to help track down the thief, Garfield?
Hey, going through life with a blue lampshade is work enough. Wake me when the lasagna comes.
Garfield, parentheses, the cat, is a character from the comic strip Garfield. From 1978, it's about an orange cat being an asshole. And like most 20th century properties in the 21st century, it has since been completely broken down to its most bankable aspects to the point where it's insulting.
Once upon a time, in the black part of the city.
Hey, look at this! I've been cleaning out my nest, and I found an old book of my poetry.
Marijuana, an unlawful substance used to experience artificial highs.
Hey, look, America, I'm smoking weed.
George Bush doesn't care about black people.
Stuffed in your face as usual.
I gotta have a good meal.
Garfield, you fat cat. You are so big and fat. Why are you so fat?
Garfield was a comic strip about nothing, but it used simplicity to its benefit and mainly focused on Garfield making sarcastic comments towards his owner's situations and was a fine punchline for a 3-panel comic. Because it's fucking 3 panels long and it's not biting off more than it can chew. It was short, stupid nothing, but it had some charm, damn it. It truly felt like you were exploring the mind of a fat kitty who just wanted food, being mad, sitting in random places, disliking dogs. I love Garfield's original design. It's not anthropomorphic because then Garfield didn't act like a human.
Smoke weed every day.
It visually communicated that he was an asshole much better because, you know, cats are assholes. I have 2 of them. This fat fuck's name is Cleo and she hides in the closet like Anne Frank all day and never moves unless she's hungry. Look, she's fucking eating Legos. That's not food. Her sister Jinx actually moves and is a lot nicer, with the shift in character design representing its shift in storytelling perfectly. By the 80s, he wasn't as sluggish and was a little more cutesy, but by the time the 90s rolled around, he was no different from any other edgy animal mascot, which there were a lot of trying to get that Sonic the Hedgehog money. By the late 90s, he was always standing on 2 legs. After a certain time, he just became a human with a Cheeto coat of paint.
Ladies and gentlemen, Garfield and friends.
But in 1988, an animated series, Garfield and Friends, released, and actually managed to make a good show out of a brief comic strip.
So if someone wants you to change the channel, kids, just say no.
It's probably the only reason, plus Garfield's design, that has any street cred in pop culture today. It's mainly carried by its writing, adapting the live Garf reaction aspect of the comic, and not being too apeshit with its conflicts.
Arbuckle, you really ought to go out with my daughter sometime. She's really nice.
That means she's fat.
In fact, she's really sweet.
It means she's incredibly fat.
And very graceful.
So fat you wouldn't believe it.
Oh, and she has a wonderful personality.
If you come to pick her up, bring a moving van.
The irony, the one-liners, the bait and switch really makes it special. However, and Friends refers to the other segment of the show, Orson's Farm, based on Jim Davis's other comic strip, which nobody gave a fuck about. I wasn't alive for Bill Clinton getting his dick sucked or whatever, but I watched Garfield and Friends on Netflix in the early 2010s, and I always just skip these segments. They were kind of more educational to appease the everything has to have a moral 80s soccer moms. I didn't want to fucking learn, and I didn't come here for fucking Orson Pig, bitch. I want Garfield. But the fact that Orson's Farm had to be added as a segment in the show kind of displays the creative limitations of Garfield as an intellectual property. Like, what's the conflict of the Christmas special? There isn't one. They just dick off at John's parents' house. Nobody's getting kicked in the balls. They're just eating mashed potatoes, applesauce, buttery biscuits. But that didn't matter because it was funny.
Whoever invented Christmas trees should be drug out into the street and shot.
And there was no shit-ass Orson's Farm either. The show had 7 seasons, which was a lot for a kid show, even now. Lorenzo Music, yes, Music's performance as Garfield is perfect. Garfield's voice here is synonymous with the character for me. If I saw Garfield on one of those stupid-ass school motivational posters, I'd read it in Lorenzo Music's voice. Music passed away in 2001, but every Garfield future voice actor has kind of tried to emulate that, with a recent exception. Throughout the course of the show, they changed the theme song twice for whatever reason, I guess to be radical with the kids or whatever, by laying down an epic boogity beat and it's garbage.
Party, we're ready.
I hope you bring lots of spaghetti.
I'm scared.
But the last season has like an epic jazz rap intro.
He's fat and he's lazy. He sleeps and he's so crazy. He's funky and he's groovy.
It's just rhyming random adjectives with no meaning. Why make an energetic song about a lazy character? The original intro wasn't bad, not quite he's a phantom, but like at least it knew not to describe Garfield. You know, because he's a cat, what else is there to establish? Garfield and Friends ended in 1944, probably because of that stupid-ass Season 7 intro. But then, in the 2000s, two genres were beginning to become viable. CG hybrid live-action remakes of cartoons, and a resurgence in animal movies. Now that CG was better and more affordable than ever, we could use technology to make dogs talk more convincingly. This is why the Air Bud movies released in the 90s and early 2000s didn't have talking doggy.
You're never gonna drop another ball again, Stuart. You can do that. Just meet the ball. Catch. Just.
But the spin-off series Air Buddies, starring Air Bud's puppies, had an ensemble of talking doggy.
Don't pull his paw! Oops. Oh, that's disgusting. Ew.
In fact, the first movie's poster advertises that they talk now, but also live-action remakes, a mostly soulless garbage genre still plaguing our theaters today. So Garfield was back as both a CG animal movie and a live-action remake, called Garfield the Movie. Garfield looks like shit because he's CG, because, you know, cats don't fucking do anything. Dogs will do anything you tell them. Why else is Air Bud the most powerful athlete in fiction? Like, what can't he do? So to eliminate the need of a cat actually moving on command, they just decided to make Garfield CG. But they didn't make Garfield look like an actual chubby orange cat, they just made this half cartoon, half realism clusterfuck. Why do they give him fucking irises? Imagine giving Garfield colored eyes.
Hey fool, can I crash here?
Garfield, you look like fucking shit, dude. What the hell happened?
I switched from Parmesan to crack in my lasagna, man. It was don't love me no more, but I love crack.
Odie is live action because dogs actually move, but Normal is also live action.
I haven't seen him since the last time I kicked him out of the table and he landed weird on his neck.
But then they made a sequel, Garfield, A Tale of Two Kitties. Something tells me they just came up with the title before they came up with a plot. So I guess they were like, fuck it, we have to make a parody of Charles Dickens' The Tale of Two Cities because 7-year-olds would get that reference. It's just Garfield dicking off in England. Kind of like And Friends in a way, but this is just completely fucking boring and not witty. And it did fine at the box office, but not exceptional like the previous. So much like Scooby-Doo 2 not performing well enough, it was booted to getting direct-to-video movies.
Hollywood Blues makes you want to holler sometimes and smoke some crack.
In fact, getting a direct-to-video animated trilogy, which is easily the peak of Garfield not being Garfield. And even if these movies are all over a decade old, they still represent perfectly what Garfield as a brand has become.
Hey, John, it's what I do. It's time to kick Odie off the table.
Don't do it, Garfield. That's our pet dog, Odie.
Yeah, real is right because it's a real piece of shit. This movie's plot is so unnecessarily convoluted. I guess it was a chance to up the scale to combat the blatant creative bankruptcy. If the animation looks familiar, it's because it uses the same art style as the Garfield show released in 2009. So despite what the art style may suggest, it's not set in the Garfield show verse. Well shit, I guess I gotta bring up the 2009 The Garfield Show. The Garfield show seems fine on the surface. Its intro is completely misleading and doesn't establish anything too out of brand. It has a really solid jazz instrumental tune with no shitty rapping, but if you watch the show, it's just weird for no reason and not in a creative way.
As folks think I am a cat.
not somebody to be trusted. My father thinks I'm bad.
It's just riddled with, like, pointless conflicts. It's oddly sci-fi-ish at times and just throws whatever at the screen. This era of Garfield CG at least does a good job of making accurate geometry in comparison to the 2D iterations. It's not great animation, it's extremely plasticky, but at least it does resemble the Jim Davis art style in a three-dimensional format enough. The consistent animation errors are unintentionally hilarious. And there's even a scene they just flat out forgot to render, but aired it on TV anyway. It was fixed in later international airings, but like, come on, man. It's a show on television. I expect the scenes to be rendered.
This is worse than the time I kicked Odie off the...
There's worse Garfield media, but it's not better than And Friends, so there's no reason to watch it. It's that shit they'd air on TV when you're sick home from school or at the dentist office or something. You know, like Almost Naked Animals or whatever. Why do they have to be naked? Oh, it's because the word naked is funny. This movie takes place within a comic book universe, and there's an attempt at creating a wacky lineup of comic characters. But because they couldn't get the rights to any characters people actually give a fuck about, like Snoopy or the Lightbringer, the comic world aspect completely falls flat. Hell, they couldn't even get the rights to characters nobody gives a fuck about, like Marmaduke or Henry. Remember Henry? He's Henry. They didn't even include shit-ass Orson's Farm either. Okay, well, there are two licensed characters that nobody gives a fuck about. Dagwood from Blondie and Grimmy from Mother Goose and Grimm. Yeah, crossover 101 tips. Don't make it if you can't get the most gangsta characters. They do try to experiment with different art styles, but it looks like fucking shit. Why is the lesbian so realistic? That's not comic-y. The bear looks like shit in more ways than one. Who's this Duchess X Marge Simpson love child fuck? Why is her nose connected to her neck? Like, solid contender for worst character design ever.
Look at Barbie. What a scary bitch.
Why must you always be fiddling with things? I mean, why can't you just sit quietly like a good husband?
Yes, dear.
Uh-oh, looks like he's getting pegged tonight with her fucking nose.
I'd take it in my crack to get some crack.
So, Garfield works for a comic company which takes pictures to send into the real world.
Cartoons not made by humans? Why, this is David Zaslav's paradise.
And we get to see the real world, in which everybody is obsessed with the Sunday funnies, because that's what kids in 2007 give a fuck about. And Garfield is like suicidal or whatever, and he wants to go into the real world. This movie is very relatable because I want to go to heaven after watching it. This is the point in the plot where it becomes completely inappropriate for the type of story it's trying to tell. It's trying to do that, oh yeah, going into the real world shit. The real world humans all have fucking awful designs, but for an animated movie, it has a very live action remake of animated premise. So Garfield is like homeless now.
They just filmed me after John got tired of my diarrhea.
So now Garfield is going to get replaced even though this is clearly what he wanted. So it's up to the shitty side characters to help get Garfield and Odie out of the real world. There's these like fucking Ivan Drago animals that just show up and lynch Garfield and Odie and some fucking homeless cat, and then they start a PS1 fire.
I love violence against the homeless. They have crack.
But then they're okay. Everything's hunky-dory. So, you guessed it. There has to be an epic dance party scene because it's a 2000s kids movie. Nothing happens the whole movie, and Garfield doesn't even get real until like 40 minutes in. The only conflict in the movie that's actually resolved is Garfield going back to the comic world. I guess he doesn't want to kill himself anymore. I'm not even sure that as a kid if I even finished this movie or not, because I remember hating it as a kid, and I don't remember anything from the second or third act. It's a movie with such an unnecessarily convoluted plot that has nothing to do with the source material, in which so little actually happens in it.
You're going into orbit, you stupid mutt.
Garfield.
Time for an ad. I'm a cat who loves to snooze.
Fun Fest. What a lame fucking title. The cover seems to imply that Es Gato Española or Rara.
I run cross country all the time. The Colombian kind is authentic.
The movie opens with like a 2D prologue that makes me wish the whole movie was like this, you know, but fully animated, which establishes that animals drink the mythical funny water to try and become funny. Less than 2 minutes in, and there's already dancing for no reason. So Funfest is a talent show, and Garfield wants to participate in it. And oh great, this bitch is back.
Garf, that's like fucking rape. You can't do that.
I'm famous. I'll get away with it.
So Garf's on a quest for some pussy's pussy.
Watch and spit it if you want to give me $100.
And he has to rig the talent show by getting funny water.
This makes me nostalgic for helping Bush get elected.
So unfunny bullshit shenanigans ensue. So he starts gambling for his drugs.
Jay-Z wouldn't give me $100 to gamble with. Thankfully, parents have an unlimited amount of money.
So Garfield meets up with the fucking Keebler elf, and he has to learn how to be funny. Then they waste an unnecessary amount of time training, and there is so much fucking filler. Don't like cats hate water. Oh yeah, I forgot. Garfield is a cat.
Fool, I don't drink funny water. I drink Coca-Cola with cocaine, of course.
Garfield, don't hit the first tower. So during Garfield's jihad, he breaks the funny water bottle accidentally, so he can't rig the election anymore. And the Keebler elf comes back and is like, oh, Garfield, funny water is a scam like Big Pharma. Garfield, you can do it. So then he goes and starts fighting the random Hispanic fuckboy pussy, and it's a robot, and his dancing was a scam like Big Pharma.
Sadly, the pigs don't take he may be a robot as an excuse to assault minorities anymore.
Then, oh no, it's not a robot, it's normal in a mech. And all the single ladies wanted to fuck normal the entire time, so he's like 4 years old, you're going to jail. Much like the previous, it's just a complete fucking nothing movie. It's set in like the span of an afternoon. Like, sure, there's no multiverse bullshit, it's easier to follow, but it's more boring and fucking lame and stupid, and has nothing to do with Garfield. I don't even know if I finished this movie as a kid. I do remember at least getting to this motherfucker and then seeing his accordion legs and hating it. It's just shitty and boring, doesn't need to exist, but oh snap, the finale of the trilogy.
Can we just watch Hot Latina Pussy Adventures 44 instead?
I hate alarm clocks. I'm damn hungry. I want some lasagna.
You're eating us out of house and home.
Garfield.
So this movie I actually really liked as a kid. In fact, I remember saying I liked this movie, but not really the Garfield show. I can recall watching it more than once, actually, on both Netflix and Cartoon Network. As a kid, my favoring of this movie made me curious to check out the previous two. What is this fucking cover? Why is Garfield a superhero? Cats aren't energetic. Well, Garfield is probably a superhero because it's 2009, motherfucker. The death of cinema itself, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is in its infancy. So blah blah blah, they tried to capitalize on a rising trend. Except this wasn't an original concept. This was an obscure piece of Garfield history. In the late 90s, Jim Davis was like out of ideas or something and was like, wait, I'm a comic funny man. Why can't I be a comic action man? Switching the genre of comic, so fuck it, Garfield superheroes. And nobody gave a fuck about Garfield superheroes because it's a complete fucking oxymoron of a concept. Now, let's go back to when Thanos' car was the peak of comedy, and everyone was making like Avengers Endgame memes, with like one of the main punchlines being random characters fighting Thanos. And at the time, those memes triggered a since-repressed memory that Garfield was a superhero at a point, and I liked it. Probably because I was super into Marvel Superhero Squad at the time, which was my introduction to a lot of the famous characters. For the record, I liked Thanos before he was a car. The pet force consists of Garzuka, Odious, Starlina, and Abnormal.
Can't forget me, Cat and Save-A-Ho.
These character designs are cursed and perfectly represent how much of an oxymoron Garfield superheroes is. So this movie goes back to the multiverse bullshit and as an alternate universe of the cartoon world, which is a comic book world. And John is the king and wants some pussy, and alternate universe Liz offers to be the bride with the intention of taking over the world as queen. Yeah, it took us 3 movies to finally introduce Liz, which is a perfect representation of Garfield not being Garfield. Because Liz is kind of an important character to Garfield lore, let's be real. You know, because presumably John lets Garfield get fat so he has an excuse to go see the veterinarian, you know, who he wants a prostate exam from.
Now what about those
keys to the kingdom?
So, Normal is obsessed with the Pet Force comics, which are comics within the cartoon world, which I guess function in the same way that the comics exist in the human world. Get real, bitch! But then Garzuka shows up to Garfield's house and is like, Garfield, we have to assemble the Avengers.
Pungent yet satisfying.
Say yes to drugs. It way more fun.
That Garfield?
Not unless he's been putting something in his milk.
Oh god, not this bitch again. Liz has a gun that can do anything. I fucking hate it when villains just have weapons with no rules. Like, just poison everybody so they can die, you stupid bitch, doctor.
She's coming.
Who's coming?
Vet Vix.
Who's this vet?
Oh, it's because she's Liz Cheney.
I love being Bush's cabinet.
So Garfield is getting held hostage, and it cuts between shitty action scenes and shitty hostage scenes over and over again. Oh look, it's my favorite font, Comic Sans. So because gun, they have to fight off zombies. And then all the shitty side characters start kicking zombies in the balls. And because gun, there's an Attack on Titan garbage monster. Then Garfield snatches Liz's gun. Yes, Garfield has canonically held a gun. This movie is 10 years old, but still perfectly represents what Garfield has become, not an orange cat being an asshole. He's just anything but. Like, he should not be holding weapons. And then Liz ain't a Cheney no more, and she's redeemed for causing a terrorist attack, like her daddy. This entire movie is just like one shitty fight scene. There's so little drama surrounding the action that it makes it difficult to be invested in the presence of danger. You know, a conflict Garfield logically wouldn't be facing. There's no like 3-act structure either. It's like Act 1, 15 minutes long. Then Act 2 with the rest, one fight scene.
So the moral of the story is don't be a fucking sellout or your brand will lose its identity. Or in Garfield's case, become a fucking crackhead. Yes, I'm aware there's another Garfield movie that's not out yet. I don't expect that to be anything exceptionally terrible, so I decided not to talk about it. Don't confuse the Garfield movie with Garfield the movie.
Garf's in the house and you don't stop. Henry's in the house and you don't stop.
Damn, you the type of girl I just can't pass over. Give me one chance and I'll bend your ass over.
Can we just watch Oh my god, what is this line?
You see, Michael? Drugs can take you up and make you feel okay for a while.
Yeah, I'll say.